This week on RSBANDB Update, almost 3 years after release, Shattered Worlds receives a boatload of fixes. Is it enough to bring us back? Then we delve into everything combat-related that arrived with Archaeology. This includes familiars, perks, and all the glorious power creep. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 773, recorded Thursday, April 16th, 2020, leveling up Shattered Worlds. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. This week is our continuing coverage of Archaeology, and this is a skill that quite frankly for me isn't getting old yet. I don't know about you guys.
No, still running it. I doubled my efforts.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll hear more about that later. But anyways, nonetheless, this week we're going to talk about the combat side of it, ancient summoning, ancient invention, what it all means. David is here to do that, so welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me again.
And in addition to that, Tanis, you've already mentioned that you're here, but we're here as we are each and every week. And, this archaeology train just keeps going and going and going. So I will say...
keeps on giving.
Yeah, that's right. I'm learning new things each and every day that we do this, and there's just so many things to this multifaceted skill. It's like, holy crap, this is perhaps the best skill ever made. And I know, yes, David, you've said that to me before, but we'll save all that waxing and waning for later. But if you guys want full show notes, you can find that at update.rsbnb.com. I am Shane12088, and he is Tanis79, and we're going to begin right about now. But before we get into this archaeology goodness on the combat side, we have to talk about it's not a mini game. It's more of a... I don't know what you call Shattered Worlds.
A mini game.
Yeah, it's a mini.
Okay.
A combat mini game.
All right, a combat mini game. Yeah. It didn't feel like a traditional mini game like Castle Wars or Fishing Trawlet or something like that.
Because you're working for actual XP. It's probably like one of the few mini games where you're actually getting regular XP.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like a mini game because it's rewarding.
Well, is it? Really
yeah, it's totally rewarding. It's like some of the best combat XP in game, plus two really one phenomenal ability, one decent ability.
Yeah, Salt the Wounded, Bladed Dive.
Yeah,
once
Bladed
you have those,
Dive is incredible, and then Salt on the Wound is decent, and then it's very good combat XP. It's not as good as ED3, but it's still until Elite Dungeon 3 came out. I think it was the best combat XP.
Yeah, I have heard that it was really good. Combat XP, but I can't remember. There's a certain technique with it too, right? Is it the mechanized chims and then brain? Okay.
Mechanized chins, decimation is also fantastic.
All right, I don't know what any of that means. I don't know how a mechanized Chinchampa and decimation all fits into that.
They make every one of your abilities an AoE.
Oh, okay.
That's all you need to know.
All right, and based on what you see in Shattered Worlds, that says exactly what you need to know about that. And, this is an update that I went and played when it first came out back in 2017, the tail end of April 2017. I think it was April 30th of 2017 it came out. And I never went back afterwards. And our episode title on episode 617, way back when, Tanis, this was your first episode you were with us as a co-host, was Shattered Expectations, the teaser being the good, the bad, and the shattering of Shattered Worlds. Then I'm going to read the next part of it just to remind you of what kind of mind state we were in, plus keeping expectations in line for Menaphos. And we know how all that turned out, didn't
It's almost like we had this bad feeling about something.
I feel like that wasn't that kind of the worst. That was the worst era I can remember. That summer, basically.
Yeah, because
that was 2017, summer of 2017.
They teased Shattered Worlds in 2016 in the summer. It was supposed to come out later that fall. It didn't. It arrived in May of 2017. And, keep in mind, we had also just come off of the Achievements rework, which, there's still things to complain about, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. But
it was a disaster. It was unusable.
Yeah, and Shattered Worlds on its own back then just left a lot to be desired because it wasn't really rewarding. It was harder than it needed to be. There was no variety to it. And it was like, okay, I'm going to grind this to get Bladed Dive, and then what? So
never come back.
The question being that we want to answer by the time we get to the end of this is, has that changed? And, we're going to go through some of the things that they did in order to, spice up Shattered Worlds this week. And I'll say on record, I went there. I had intended to, maybe play for half an hour to an hour, perhaps. I was there for 2 hours playing the thing on it.
See, I feel like this is going to be deja vu because there's so much to like about Shattered Worlds. When I went back to check it out, I thought it reminded me of like just how nice it looked. Like that's always been something I've been super impressed with Shattered Worlds is just the way, just the models for the monsters. It just looks really good.
The environment, the maps, everything.
Environment, and yeah. So when I was trying out, the new stuff, it was cool. But when you have Bladed Dive and Salt the Wound, and I did that on those weekends. I think it was weekends with or a week where the anima was doubled or whatever.
Yeah. But on that note, there is 25% extra anima between now and April 26th.
See, and that's cool. But still, like, with the exception of one of the new items, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, nothing really there. Unless I was trying to get combat XP.
Yeah, and the way I'm approaching this, in addition to the rewards that you were mentioning, is that, yeah, it's going to be about combat XP. But for me, one of the things I see this as, and one thing that, it really didn't do before because there wasn't the variety associated with it, is it wasn't a good showcase of the NXT combat system where, somebody who just got level 30 combat or somebody who is level 100 plus combat can go there. And they can find a level band that is suitable to them, and they can effectively climb and do PVM. I'm calling this PVM. It's not a boss fight; it's PVM in a safe way.
Every 5-ish levels.
Yeah, it's actually random when the boss appears. Believe it or not, you can get it not just on the 5th level. Believe it or not, yeah.
Got it right on.
I got it at some of the mid-levels, and this goes into – let me just finish my thought here, but it goes into why or some of the changes they made. This is something that is used to showcase the combat system and effectively give players a PVM challenge who want to do it in a safe way and might be learning combat. That's the way I see this. And granted, yeah, there's still use cases for me, you, and, David, I don't know if you'd come back here. Since you've already got Bladed Dive and whatnot, but that's the case that I see this as. It's a showcase for the way combat works in game, a place for people to learn their revolution action bars and whatnot, and to just test themselves to see how far they can go and, effectively learn mechanics that aren't necessarily geared towards, top-tier bosses, but perhaps geared towards Slayer creatures. That's what I see the use of Shattered Worlds for. That's what I see the use for. Things that they've added to it, they've changed the way some of the objectives work. 3 new objectives have been added, and the originals now have more variety. The original kill X percentage of enemies now varies between 65 and 80%. Previously, it was always at 75%. They added a deal X damage objective, where you just have to deal a certain amount of damage to move on. They have a repair the portal objective. You just kill enemies until they drop 3 portal repair kits. You repair the portal and you can move on. And then, and this is what you were thinking it was every 5 levels, but it can actually happen at any level. There's a new summon and kill the boss objective where you'll kill enough enemies to summon a boss, and then you need to kill that boss. But, like you said, bosses can also appear once every 5th world. So you can get it in between, and I don't know if you got the ones on every 5th, but I got numerous ones that were in between where you have to go and kill, or get enough kills to actually get that.
Per our pre-show discussion, maybe I did get him at other times. At the time I noticed it, it was a 5th level.
Okay.
Because I looked at the top, not saying that I didn't kill one before, because I didn't really notice it when I did.
All right. The bosses that can appear are the God Wars 1 generals, not including Nex, the Chaos Elemental, one of the Dagonoth Kings, and any of the Barrows brothers. Bosses scale based on your world level, and they have no specific attack style or weakness, just like in other Shattered Worlds cases. Minion enemies that spawn from normal enemies due to Hydra, the Hydra mutator, will now count towards the main world objective, and as such, the Hydra mutator has been redesignated as a neutral, as it can be used to a player's advantage, whereas previously it was a disadvantage. So that's what they've done on the objective side of this. And, you know, like as it always is, Shattered Worlds has been great to show off NXT environments because, you know, NXT came out in 2016, and it was planned to have this out in the fall of that year, and it was seen as a way to showcase just, you know, how amazing NXT is and what they could do with it, and it still accomplishes that 4 years later, and you and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
David, would any of these objectives make you go back to Shattered Worlds, or are you done with that place?
I mean, I'm certainly going to go on my Iron Man. I'm about halfway to Bladed Dive, so I'll probably do that for the 2 abilities, and if I like it, maybe I'll stay, but unlikely.
All right. Let's talk about rewards then. You can now buy Spirits of Battle from the Slayer Mask tab. These cost 100 million anima and can be used to reset the kill count on Slayer Masks. Is there a reason you'd want to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because it gives you a better chance for the drops. Like,
yeah, it has a chance to double your drop.
Oh,
yeah,
the lower your kill count is?
No, just it lasts for 1,000 kills, then it reverts to a different item.
Oh, I see. All right, fair enough. All right.
Like, it still counts as a Slayer helm, and it still can be used to force the task, but it no longer will double your item.
All right, fair enough.
yeah, it's like a helm, but when you use one of those, it turns it back to a mask.
Okay, that's good. Slayer masks have been collected into one tab and are sorted by level. Greater Demons and Dagonoths do not have Slayer requirements, but are placed in an appropriate slot on the list. And, you know, this is a fun reminder for me that every time I go here, I own all the Slayer masks, and that was nice to see.
Oh, that's cool.
They added 3 new titles, including the Abyssal Knight, the Animaniac, and the Abyss Diver. Each cost 150 million anima.
Was I the only one that got a little chuckle out of the Animaniac? Does anyone recognize that from Saturday morning?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The cartoon?
Animaniacs?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't watch them, but I'm 100% aware of what they are.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure many people will want to go for it just for that reason on its own. So that's fine. Teleport scrolls have been added to the reward shop. These will teleport you directly to Shattered Worlds and cost 250,000 anima. Why would you do that when this thing's in the Lumber Swamp?
I don't know. I mean, not at that price. I don't know. Because I thought that, and then I went there, and I'm like, could use a teleport. I wish I had a teleport.
Oh, was it really useful? 250 million anima for that?
No, not at 250k. Absolutely. I mean, no.
Or sorry, 250k. I said 250 million. It's 250k.
Can you use like Wicked Hood next to it?
Oh yeah, that. But you're right. Yeah.
To the water altar.
Yeah.
Let's go over some of the other things that were changed with it then. Let's see. Reward side we did. In general, players can now use weekly D&D tokens to reset their Shattered World challenges. This will reset all of your currently completed challenges. As such, can be used even when only 1 or 2 challenges are complete. So it's a complete wipe. You don't need to complete them all before you use this if you want to do this. I don't know. I never understood the point of these weekly Shattered World challenges.
It's good anima.
Okay.
Like a chunk of anima.
All right, fair enough. And, you know, this is, I think, the part that was confusing to me in the initial outset. It's like, there's no way of really tracking how much I've done in this minigame except for, you know, the levels that I've unlocked, right? So maybe these challenges are now a good thing to have in that regard. I don't know.
I mean, I think it did give it some variety and everything, but it's almost like the curse of Shattered Worlds, where everything looks good and
on paper,
it's fun on paper, and I mean, it's fun. It's not like miserable or something, you know. It's cool.
It's fun.
But somehow you're like, you know, like, I don't know. It should have. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what's. Actually, I do know. There is one thing that I really, really think would help Shattered, and that is to be able to go in with a partner.
Huh.
Make that co-op, and I think you've got a huge, huge winner.
Co-op would be good. I also think that if they just added another ability, it would be.
Oh, like another ability to purchase, but then, you know, that's just another thing.
But nothing broken though. Just like
exactly.
Maybe something like, well, they could do like a Slayer ability, like Tuska's Wrath, but then you have to charge it with anima, like.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Like you use it maybe 5,000 times, then you have to like charge it or whatever, or like whatever it is. I'm not a balancer, but something like that maybe.
It's a great tie-in though, because Shattered Worlds is one you get Slayer XP for those creatures, so and actually get a little bit of a bonus. So that would be a great tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, the only other group content you have like this that's PVM related is dungeoneering in a way in the Elite Dungeons.
Yeah, Elite Dungeons are very similar. Like Elite Dungeon 3 right now is something that I now do all the time because it's absolutely busted for Ironman. And I think that they could easily do Shattered Worlds in a similar fashion.
Oh yeah, that's something I was meaning to ask you. How much XP do you get doing an Elite Dungeon 3 in dungeoneering?
Yeah, well, so obviously you don't do the bosses or anything.
Right.
You just go to the first log and then teleport out and repeat.
Right.
So every team I've been on has been 3 Sun Spears, so tier 78, and like a mix of Lunar and Subjugation.
Sure.
But sometimes not even that. Probably get around 1.1 mil XP an hour.
In dungeoneering?
Dungeoneering XP, yeah.
No, combat.
What about dungeoneering XP? That's what I was after.
Basically none. You get a lot of dungeoneering XP doing Elite Dungeon 1 mini boss farming because you farm for tokens, then you buy XP with tokens.
Okay, that's what I was after. Any idea what that is?
So that's about 200k tokens an hour. So about 200k dungeoneering XP an hour, I would say.
Okay,
definitely a lot slower than.
It's a lot slower than doing regular. Then, all right.
Yeah, but Ironman don't have access to 5-man,
yeah.
so it's basically the same as solo larges, and most people would rather just do mini bosses than do solo larges.
All right.
Oh hell yeah!
And
yeah, without a doubt.
And now imagine applying this same kind of thing to Shattered Worlds. You'd have a new hit.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, you can no longer repeat Shattered World challenges in the same week without using a token. And Shattered Worlds has been added to the minigames and D&D tracking interface, where you'll be able to find information on the minigame, which weekly challenges you're able to complete, and to teleport to the nearest lodestone, which of course being Draenor, I think. Or maybe it's Lumbridge, I don't know, it's one of those two. The auto pickup functionality for anima has been optimized to leave less anima on the ground. Yeah, you definitely want that to happen. The audio for Zones of Suffering and Zones of Restoration have been proved to be more noticeable and will only trigger when inside the zone. That one's a good one for you, Tanis.
You know, I thought that I was doing some of the challenges, and it was like these explodey kind of things of electricity. Like I couldn't see crap that was going on. Like wow, it was just so much. Like there was so much going on that you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Luckily, I melee everything anyway, so just punch it in the face.
Yeah.
But
the ability to skip worlds based on your performance is now calculated when completing an objective, as opposed to when you reach and use the portal. A chat message will remind you on how many worlds you've skipped. This is nice. That, hey, we don't need to run necessarily. It's just when you complete the objective. And then if you got the bleeding money modifier on, you can just sit there and you can kill the rest of the creatures on the level, even if you've already beat your objective, based on how fast it was. I like the level skipping part. That's real fun. The static mutator buff bar icon previously displayed stacks from 1 to 20, where your damage was taken was the stack number multiplied by 10. This has now been changed to a percentage from 10 to 200. The description of this buff has been improved. And a skip button has been added to the end of game summary to allow players to skip the animation that shows the calculations from anima gained during the session. Also, a bunch of changes on the interfaces. Info boxes have been added for reaching a checkpoint to inform players that their mutators have been reset and their stats replenished. Whenever you get a new max hit, there's an info box that pops up, or when you progress or complete a challenge. The info box displayed to the players when they complete an objective has been made green, so you can see at a glance when this objective is complete. Very nice. Comma separators have been added to a number of places where bigger numbers are displayed in an info box or chat message. They include when gaining anima from a side objective or the checkpoint chest, when a weekly challenge is completed, or when reaching a new highest world. Minigame maps have also been added for side objectives, bosses, entrance and exit portals, and bank chests on the checkpoint world. Tooltips have been added to most of the interface elements. Tooltips can be viewed on mobile devices, of course. They updated the Equip Me and Feed Me buttons to use the appropriate builders to show correctly and be consistent on default legacy and mobile interfaces. You can no longer maximize the minigame HUD on mobile, but the interface has been improved so that all information is clearly shown without the need to maximize. The anima gained icon has been changed to use the same icon as the inventory model for anima. Mutator dropdowns have been removed from the HUD and they now appear in a horizontal list. They kind of look like a mini buff bar at the top of your screen. The HUD tooltip for anima has had lifetime anima removed and available anima changed to total anima, which makes sense because, you only really want to know about what's happening in the current session. The damage stat shown on the end screen summary has had its cap increased from 1 million to 30 million. Weekly challenge interfaces have been improved and will now better display the tier of the challenge in the color of the title, the mutators that will be in effect, and the reward for completing them. The descriptions and titles of some of these challenges have been changed to be more thematic. And the message received when you die in Shattered Worlds and attempt to open the chest has been adjusted to better describe why you're unable to open it.
Oh, okay.
Now, what does this laundry list of patch notes tell you guys?
There was a lot to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been almost 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And, we've always had this discussion that, this was an update that came out and it's like, oh, I never want to go back there. It's just...
Well, you just never had enough reason to.
Right. And, even me, I forget what the amount of anima you need is for Bladed Dive, but I got 41 million of it already. So I only need like 20-odd million more, I think. And,
it's like
not,
63 million, I think.
And that's not too bad with the amount of anima that I'm getting after this. And remember when this first came out, you were getting much smaller amounts of anima from it too.
Yeah.
So this was the case for this minigame was death by 1,000 cuts. It really was. to the point where you play it only to get the ability and then you move on. The challenges are nice, but it's a little bit of deja vu, isn't it? Because once you have the abilities you want, I mean, are you really going to come back here?
Well, and like I said, the what's it called? The item, Spirit of Battle. That is a good item. At 100 mil anima, that's a lot.
It's not worth it.
So it's not really worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close. 100 mil.
Right, but like an Iron
Yeah,
Man,
that's bonkers.
there's a lot more for them to get out of it, because I'm sure having Slayer Mask are probably nice.
The problem is that the Anachronia Slayer Master, I have no clue how to pronounce her name,
Laniakea, I believe.
Laniakea is broken. Like, if you block like 4 of her tasks, then her task list is like perfect. It's every single task is good. So
Oh well, then I guess it's
you don't really need the Slayer Masks anymore to force good tasks. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm training this account, and I will probably never do a single task from Morven.
wow.
Because I went from like I already had the Laniakea stats before I unlocked Prif.
Wow. That's cool.
So, are we... Like, I feel like we're better off. Like, I enjoyed it. I didn't anticipate to spend 2 hours playing it. It's good. It's good content. It's nowhere in the position it was at release. So I think the only bad thing we have to say about it is that after you get what you want out of it, for reward-wise, it's hard to see a reason to go back.
Yeah, and even though it's good combat XP, a lot of things are good combat XP.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just, and it's almost like combat gets trained whether you're bossing or doing Slayer, like,
Or even doing dungeoneering.
Or dungeoneering. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard not to train your combat skills sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
That's the crickets I hear. It's like, what's the point of Shadow Worlds after the rewards?
Yeah.
And, I mean, you might as well.
That question was not answered.
It wasn't. It wasn't answered. And I think David's idea is perhaps the best, of just having a Slayer ability that would be good, but not overpowered, but you just need to recharge it with anima every so often. And this is how you do it.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I think I do have enough reason to go back there, and it's not going to be painful, that I can go and I can push myself, find a nice, comfortable band, and go and get Bladed Dive now. I think I am willing to do that now at this point. Because I wasn't when this first came out 3 years ago, because it was just bad in terms of the difficulty scaling, as well as the anima rewards just weren't there. So,
yeah. Well, like I said, I waited until it was doubled.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else on Shattered Worlds? We good?
I'm good.
All right. We're going to move on into the rest of the patch notes right now because, believe it or not, there are those as well this week. So just moving on into those with this here. I scrolled up. We need to scroll down on that one. Alrighty. So just general game patch notes right now. The Mage Zamorak, who teleports you to the Abyss from the Wilderness, now has a configure option, which can be used to set its left-click option as either teleport or talk. If you want to do that. And I mean, hey, I think we're at the point where we're going to see a rise in abyssal runecrafting, right?
Yeah, great. It's great for runecrafting.
So that's good.
It's going to make 200 mil runecrafting way less frustrating, for sure.
Yeah, that's true, especially with the new relics that came out with Archaeology.
Oh, yeah.
So
that right click can be the difference between getting PK and ads.
Do people still PK at the...
A lot, but it happens. I mean, it happens.
All right, fair enough. Fair
kind of like the farm patch, it can happen.
Yeah, and that's what I said back in October. It's like, I really haven't, seen much of PKing going on. Then, lo and behold, I got killed there. So, all right. Let's move on to the next one then. When talk is selected, the mage will still offer you to teleport you to the abyss with a yes or no option after the initial dialogue. Okay. Now on to some more archaeology changes this week, which is what everybody's probably waiting to hear. What exactly was in here for? Because, these changes are important, and there's going to be some other important changes coming next week. I believe they said we're finally going to be able to put things like the Pontifex Signet Ring and the amulet from the Zoroastig site on our tool belt. I've given away one of those already to a collection, and that annoyed me greatly. So that's something that will be coming in the future, hopefully. But this week we got some improvements so that the site map at the Archaeology Guild now informs players about the site keyboard shortcuts, just like the Lodestone map does. Dueling a player that has a Blood Reaver familiar will no longer continuously loop the duel setup and heal the user's life points. That's a bit of a weird one. A chest inside the exam center can be used once again to advance a medium clue scroll. The chance of receiving an incandomatic piece now increases in line with your archaeology level, whereas it was flat before. And, this makes it the earliest you can get the Incando is now at 81.
Yeah.
So.
Are you after yours yet, Shane?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening after 81. I don't know if I'm going to push for that or what. I mean, I think it would make sense too because everybody's going to want to get the Matic of Time and Space, right? Eventually.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah. You could also revert your crystal back into a dragon and then upgrade the dragon into an Inferno.
Yeah, but then you need.
Dust doesn't bother you.
Yeah, the dust doesn't. You need to get the dust again if you didn't have.
Yeah, you would just be out 4K dust.
Not sure how I feel about that.
I went ahead and made perks, like the good perks for the Incando, and then just put them in the bank, and then put regular tool gizmo on.
Yeah, I assumed you went for like a honed 5 and maybe some kind of imp sold.
Yes.
Okay.
Imp sold 2 because I couldn't. I mean, I can't afford one of those Elven Shard things, so I don't have that.
Yeah. All right. Changed Restoration Station to Archaeologist Workbench in the Restoration Makex menu to be more accurate with the game world. The Seed of the Charyu Tree and the Hand of Glory Luck of the Dwarves relics have had their skill guide levels corrected from 89 to 83. Guildmaster. Yeah, I don't exactly know what that is.
Have you seen the price of LOTD? I bought mine for like
they shot up, didn't they?
Yeah, because you need a second one now. Kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to wait on that.
Clues, fortunate components. Clues.
The Seed of the Charyu Tree grants the always adds relic power, which is self-explanatory. You'll always burn your cut logs for fire-making XP. Okay. I imagine this one's perhaps going to be controversial here. Guildmaster Tony's Matic has had its precision stat reduced from 90 to 85 because the precision was providing too many additional projects over a period of time. And only a handful of people had these and were able to benefit from them for 2 weeks.
Well, they were so expensive too, weren't they?
Yeah. Rumor has it this is how Lemmy rocketed into the lead, or increased the lead greatly before 120.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was right on what I heard on that. And that was always weird to me that they made that decision to have it set like this because it had a precision of 90 before, whereas everything else just went up by 5. And it's like, okay, why not just keep doing that, right?
Yeah, it was a little... I mean, even if it was the same precision, it would still be totally
better. Let's look at the crystal has 60. Then the Mkando has 70. Then the Matic of Time and Space has 80. And then we jumped up to 90 for the Guildmasters one. When, in reality, you could even make the case that it should have had the exact same stats of the Matic of Time and Space, and maybe had a little secondary like the HSR has.
Well, yeah, and the secondaries for the Tonys are really, really good.
Right.
Definitely the best of anyone.
And, let's also not forget that it's got
cool, though.
Extra focus boost on it, too.
People love a chance at, a gigantic drop. And, skilling... that's one thing PVM has had for years that skilling didn't. And now skilling has 3 different massive drops that you can get between the 3.
The Tony's Matic, the Tavia's Rod, and Orlando's hat, I believe.
Oh, that's 4 then, because HSR.
Oh, you're counting HSR for that. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I would say most of them come in with Saren Spirits these days, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but
a
fair number do.
I don't know.
A fair number do, for sure.
I don't know. Tanis, what would you have done on this?
I have no idea. I mean, the tiers seemed like they were fine. I mean, when you were naming them off, they were every 10. So, I don't know.
Yeah, but,
I mean, I don't think it's going to be worth as much.
But they're both tier 99 Matics. The Time and Space and Tony's.
Right, but you have to pay so much.
Yeah, you got to pay an arm and a leg for Tony's. So, more than that,
yeah,
maybe
they're still over 10 bill, right?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't keep track on those prices.
Plus the chrono.
They're probably still 10 bill.
Yeah, that's a lot.
All right. So I guess it's in a fine state now. If you have the Berserker's Fury power active while wearing the full Darok set, the Darok set effect will be applied instead of the Relic power. Okay, that's good for people who are in the 70s and 80s who might be wearing Darok still. I wish I was still in the era where Barrow's armor was good, don't you?
You mean that first month of invention?
Oh, man. I really wanted a good rank in invention, so I spent so much money.
That was the last time I knew that it was good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. The message that displays when you reach 100% sprite focus has been updated slightly. Some luck messaging has been adjusted in cases where a ring has been swapped as you're getting a lucky drop. Okay. I didn't know that was possible. That's weird. You can now siphon the Crystal Matic using a Crystal Tool Siphon. Previously, you couldn't. So missing out on some nice invention XP there. The Nosarog Sculpture Artifact has been changed to require 30 Warforged Bronze rather than 30 Soapstone. Players are now better informed about the rewards from rolling the Infernal Dice in the Infernal Source, which, of course, reduces the chance of your portals from messing up. The Archaeology Guild descriptions for the material manual and the Archaeology teleports have been updated to give more information on their uses. That was amazing when Brew was walking through that last week, just the pure amount of cost that we would have been dealing with on that there.
Yeah.
The destroy option on the Archaeology lore page has been changed to transcribe to better indicate its functions. And the Archaeology Master Skill Cape can now be placed on the Skill Cape stand in the Anachronia base camp.
Cool.
General fixes for Archaeology fixed an issue where the Inquisitor staff damage boost was not applying to some attacks. Okay, let's talk about the Inquisitor staff. What is this, David, and why is it such a huge deal?
And so the Inquisitor staff completes the trio of weapons that are tier 80 but do a significantly higher amount of damage against their weakness in the combat triangle. So you had the Hex Hunter Bow was first, the Pterosaur Maul from Big Game Hunter was second, and then this staff is the third. So the staff is a tier 80 staff, but against enemies who are melee based, it does approximately, and this is not exact by any means because it affects different abilities a little bit differently. For example, bleeds, autos, and then like standard abilities all work slightly differently. But on average, you're going to be seeing tier 97 damage and tier 88 accuracy, making
Let's
it
just
the best staff.
back up a bit here for that.
Yeah.
Let's just back up a bit. So tier 87 accuracy. You said, right?
Or tier 88 accuracy.
Tier 88 accuracy and tier 97 damage.
Correct. On average. And that's not
with,
every ability, but
right,
on average that is what
with,
will be.
You said basics, bleeds, and what was the other one?
I was saying basics, bleeds, and then like standard abilities like maybe wild magic all work. They're all calculated a little bit differently. So that the reason it's tier 97 is because, in a normal rotation, you would be using all those things.
Right. And you can see why this is something that people want.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the best in slot staff for many of the game's end bosses.
Would you take this over a Sliske staff?
Yes. Almost certainly. Perhaps there could be some room for debate, but not really, honestly. You definitely want to be using this at the places it works, which include Telos, Virago, and Solak.
Why does it only work at specific places?
Because it only works against enemies who are melee-based.
Okay. Gotcha.
And Araxor as well, because Araxor you could spawn in its mage form.
Right.
Its form by using it, so it would also work at Araxor. So that's 4 of the top 5 or 6, highest tier bosses in the game. It will be working against it.
And so, do we know how exactly it was broken? If it was just, not firing off and not.
It was doing tier 80 damage on auto attacks and a bunch of different abilities. It was just doing tier 80 damage, so it wasn't working at all.
That's why that guy paid $2 billion and then did 1 Telos and then disassembled it. I felt like a jackass this week.
Yeah, it was functionally a tier 80 weapon on release. It wasn't working properly.
All right. The wiki actually has some of these. Other ones where it's possible to be used, aside from the ones you mentioned, are Avaris, the Unceasing, Beastmaster Durzag, Commander Ziliana, Darok the Wretched, General Guerrador, Guthan, Hurricane, Hellweir, Calphite King, Kirill, Krar, Nex Angel of Death, QBD, Torag, Virak, and Virago.
Imagine buying this staff just to use it against the Barrows
like this.
I was like, what?
These are all, like you said, these are all the bosses that you could ever want to do. Araxor, Telos,
yeah,
Virago,
I mean,
Beastmaster.
The whole end game is stuffed with melee-based bosses.
And magic was already the top of the food chain.
Well, so not anymore. Actually, melee and range have now outclassed magic for the most part.
Really?
We could talk about that another time if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With the introduction of, with ranged, you have Backer-Menial bolts, which brought it very close to Fortic auto attacking, and then you have the Saren Godbow spec got buffed, and the new what's it called? The new 2-handed crossbow from ED3. But yeah, so that's really good. And then melee is just completely disgusting, especially with the new spear. Like, holy, that melee is probably the best.
Which spear?
Magic is still
the new one. It's here, but it's not in wide circulation yet.
What's
the new
tier
tier 92 spear?
It's just like the stuff. What's it called, Sam?
It's called Masterwork Spear of Annihilation. Do you remember the lunging ability from the rework, the Switchscape rework, for lack of a better term?
Yeah.
So they just gave that spec, so bleeds last 50% longer to the spear, and it stacks with lunging 4. So if you were to just do dismember, blood tendrils, and slaughter with walk on, when you walk your slaughter, it does more damage. Those 3 abilities by themselves do over 60,000 damage with the new spear.
Oh.
So that's another really big buff to melee. But magic will always be, I think, the most versatile style. So
It also
it's
feels
rarely
like to me it's the
best style
easiest to get into.
Yeah, I think
Unless
so
you're,
too.
wanting to use your trim masterwork somewhere, right?
Yeah. I think magic is still like really, really good. I think magic is almost always the easiest style to learn bosses with.
Yeah.
All right. And it's probably still the best for Telos, which is, the biggest money maker.
Yeah, which is, of course, on this list here. Okay.
Yeah, and so basically it's still worthwhile to 4-tick auto attack, but if you were to use a staff by itself, you would be doing more damage with the staff alone than someone who is using seismics and a knock staff, so tier 90s and 4-ticking perfectly.
Yeah, I thought this was like kind of did it automatically, like it was built in, wasn't it?
Well, there's no like built-in 4-ticking. It's just like if 4-ticking is on average like 7 to 8% more damage, the staff makes up for that on its own just by being so powerful.
Okay.
But yeah, it didn't make 4-ticking easier or anything. 4-ticking is still, challenging.
I'm just amazed that I completely missed the staff on the Archaeology launch. The spear. I was aware of the staff, but I had no idea that they launched the spear with that too.
Yeah, you should see Torva prices. A Torva plate body is like 130 mil right now because trimmed masterwork. What are those glorious bars? Is that what they're called?
Yeah,
because you need
masterwork essence or something to that effect.
I believe that you need 16 of those bars to upgrade the spear from a tier 90 to a tier 92.
All right. So what we're seeing then is also a resurgence of the smithing side of the equation there for anybody who's just a smith that wants to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and also Torva is just through the roof.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an even higher. It's an even higher archaeology level than the staff, right? Now it's already 115. So, to make it?
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that's going to be focused around the real end game of archaeology then, because like you said, 114, you're pretty much there. At the end, that would be why we missed it last week, because we were talking about efficiency and we were just getting our head wrapped around the skill 2 weeks ago, so that makes sense. All right. We got away from the patch notes there, but we will, of course, be coming back to the combat side of archaeology soon.
Just one quick note.
Please.
If anyone is planning to try to learn a boss like Telos...
You cut out there. Learn a boss like Telos.
Sorry. Yeah, if you're trying to learn a boss like that, it's possible the staff will keep crashing. I'm not a market expert by any means, but 200 mil or 220 mil or so for the best possible weapon you could use against many endgame bosses seems like a steal to me.
Yeah.
It is cheaper right now to buy this staff than it is to buy seismics. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. So just a bit of a recap then on the Spear of Annihilation. Increases the duration of bleeds by 50%, and you're saying this is the main reason that we are interested in this staff, right? The Masterwork Spear of Annihilation is because what it does to bleeds.
Yeah, it's still a tier 92, so it'd still be pretty good even if you just used it. But the reason it's so good is because of its utility as a switch for bleeds. And it has 2 perk slots, so it can double as your flanking switch and your bleed switch, which, saves an inventory slot.
All right. Interesting. All right. And, this top-end RuneScape combat just keeps getting more and more complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. This one, though, if you are already using a lunging switch and a flanking switch, then you've combined 2 switches into one, though. So it actually is really nice for people who are already doing the switchscape madness.
All right. And if this was the point where we're standing up and talking about this, I'd have to have a seat and just think about this right now. Hopefully that was clear enough to the listeners out there on this, because I mean, this went in an entirely different direction than I was anticipating, and then my mind is just I can't believe what we're talking about here in terms of just the amount of DPS that's potentially able to be happening with this. So.
Oh, and we haven't even gotten to the archaeology stuff.
Yeah. All right. Fix the images for classic and historic components in the skill guide and discovery workbench, and fixed a gap in the wall inside the exam center. Relatively baby small patch notes after talking about the staff and the masterwork spear there. Some other little patch notes this week as well. It wasn't just all Shattered Worlds and all archaeology. Players that had the Santa Paws outfit equipped to Felix will no longer see a different outfit equipped when they log in. Of course, that's from the Cat promo last year and last week's Meowsketeer. Increase the options available for draw distance on mobile to now include low, medium, high, and ultra. Fix some issues with the game's graphical settings. The draw distance option should now function correctly. And the depth of field option is only available on high or ultra draw distances. If set to medium or low, the option is disabled. However, the checkbox will remain checked. This error has been corrected. And of course, this makes sense, because if there's nothing out there for you to see, there's nothing for depth of field to blur out and make it feel as though it's further away. And finally, flickering effects can now be toggled on and off again. All right, now is the point at which we move on to combat and archaeology with this, because, we just finished talking about the spear and what exactly other little changes were made for the archaeology skill. But we did want to have a look at everything in relation to archaeology from the combat side of it. And, I think these 2 weeks have been a whirlwind for everybody involved in the skill. And what we're going to do here is we're going to split this into 3 parts. We're going to first talk about relic powers that people might be interested in. We're then going to talk about ancient summoning. And then we're, of course, going to talk about ancient inventions and probably all the perks that you'll want to choose with that. So on the relic side, which of the relics that we've seen so far are you interested in, David? I assume it's not going to be the Font of Life for an extra 500 life points.
Well, actually, so ironically, I am currently using that because the 2 others that I have only leave me with 50 power left over, so I might as well just use that one.
All right.
Not that it's not good or whatever. It's just like
it's just a little
that's
bit
all
extra.
I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you want me to go through the list and you can give me your opinion on them, or do you want to just talk about the ones you feel the best?
Yeah, sure. That's totally fine.
All right. Berserker's Fury, the Darux one that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so this one's incredible.
Combine a lock of hair with Amulet of the Forsaken, which I know you and Reed had a bit of a discussion about last night.
Yeah, I did. It was a funny discussion. Yeah, so this one is fantastic. I obviously don't know what all of the math will work out to, but it would not surprise me if this turned out to be the best one. BMing, you're often quite low HP, and there are many scenarios where you could actually, with reasonable success, purposely keep your HP low. So I did about 8 hours of Virago last night, mostly duo, and my partner and I did different things where we would purposely make our HP really low, and we noticed that the buff right away. So 5.5% damage when you have like 100 HP left.
And it's for all styles too. It's not just melee.
Right, for all styles. And it scales based on your HP. So it's just a straight up added damage buff. And it's really, really fantastic, I think. One of the best ones for sure. And I would say the 46 mil price for Amulet of the Forsaken is worth it. This is another big money-making opportunity for anyone who's trying to complete their Barrows collection, or even if you just want 100 KC for final boss eventually. The Amulet of Forsaken is 45 to 50 mil at the moment, which is kind of wild.
And that's from standard Barrows, not Rise of the Six.
Right? Standard Barrows, which you could do with level 60 stats pretty easily.
Imagine getting that kind of drop as a level 60 combat type, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you
what?
totally could. I have a friend, my friend's Iron Man has gotten 5 of them, so he drop traded 3 of them over to a different account and sold them for
Oh,
50 mil each.
okay. Good to know that's still a thing.
Yeah.
Death Ward, 5% damage reduction when your life points are below 50%, 10% damage reduction when they're below 25%.
Yeah, I don't think you'd ever want to use this. The increased damage is just a lot better.
Yeah.
From the
All right.
Barrow's Relic. I would never turn this on. Even if you're learning a boss, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they focus on damage reduction instead of increased damage when trying to learn a new boss. The longer a kill takes, the more damage you take. That will always be true. And so you want to focus on things that increase your damage, not that increase your quote-unquote survivability.
Yeah, and with this seems like something you'd probably want to do if we had a real tank class in game.
Right, which we've never had.
Yeah. Fury of the Small. All basic abilities generate 1% more adrenaline.
Yeah, this is the other one I'm using. So the combination of the two leaves me with only enough relic power for the 500 HP one. So this one is also fantastic. It's like having a constant impatient, and then that with impatient 4 means that on average your basics are doing 10% adrenaline, which is fantastic.
That's that was my next question that I was wondering on this. Have you added any more basic abilities to your rotation from this, or do you have quite a few as it is?
No, nothing has changed. Really, you just end up with a little bit more adrenaline than normal at the end of your rotation, which can mean a varied number of things. It could mean that if you have to emergency debilitate or devotion, that doesn't hurt you very much. It could mean that you just build to your next sunshine faster. It allows for higher level stuff, like the thing that people learning Virago duos struggle with is building adrenaline. Like that's the difference between someone experienced and someone not experienced at duos. And so this can really help people who are trying to learn stuff like that improve substantially. So I think it's a really good, really, really good relic, and definitely worth getting 97 archaeology for it.
All right. Persistent Rage, your adrenaline won't drain outside of combat. I'm going to guess that's a no.
No, yeah, it's a no, except that I might use it if I were, say, AFKing God Wars Dungeon 1 and just wanted, like, I was doing God Wars Dungeon 1 with potion reservoirs and this perk, and so it just made it so that,
we lost you there. Try again.
At the end of a kill. Oh, sorry. I was saying it's really good for, like, AFKing stuff. So the two examples that come to mind are God Wars Dungeon 1 and King Black Dragon, maybe. Like, if you're AFKing for collections or titles or IFB, then this would be pretty good for that, because normally by the time the boss spawns, you've lost all your adrenaline. Obviously, you can maintain your adrenaline in, like, a real fight or whatever, but if you're, cooking food and killing Kriara or whatever, then, you can do that and not lose adrenaline.
All right. Heightened Senses increases maximum adrenaline by 10% at level 105.
This one I haven't tried out yet because I don't have the archaeology level for it, but it seems very, very good. I don't know if it's going to be as good as the Berserker's Fury one, but it is possible. It is worth using over Fury of the Small. I'm just not sure yet. I don't know.
In some ways it's a different it's looking at the different end of the same equation, because Fury of the Small is going to build up faster to that 100%, whereas Heightened Senses is just going to give you an extra 10% to work with that you can bank up over time.
I think for, like, records and speed kills, Heightened Senses is going to make a big difference. My guess is for, and we don't know yet, but my guess is just for day-to-day PVMing, Fury of the Small is going to be the one you want to use.
All right. And then the last one is Conservation of Energy at 118. After you use an ultimate, you will regain 10% adrenaline.
Yeah, so this one also is really, really wonderful. The like couple of uses that I can think of are, again, AFKing content, where you want to use a Luck of the Dwarves. Now that maybe you don't need to do that anymore because of the perk of the relic for Luck of the Dwarves.
Yeah.
But if you were AFKing and didn't want to use that relic for some reason, like maybe you wanted a different relic powered up, then you could wear your Luck of the Dwarves, and it would be like you had a constant vigor, so that's nice. And then at high level PVM, this also is probably like very good. I'm not sure yet if it's as good as Fury of the Small. I think that those three are all going to end up being very close to each other in terms of damage added. And then I think that Berserker's Fury will probably stay as the best of the four, if that makes sense.
All right. Tanis, you have any questions on the relics side of this?
No.
I think that's a good summary.
Cool.
Ancient Summoning, which everybody was freaking out about when that launched because the Water Fiend and what that did for the gathering skills, but of course that's not a combat related familiar. We have the Hellhound, which absorbs 10% of damage dealt to you by taking the hit itself, and you can just stop me if any of these sound interesting to you that you'd consider using. I know which one it's going to be, but
I think the Hellhound might be good for doing Shattered Worlds. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. Maybe there's just like a shot in the dark because, like on account, sometimes at really really high level worlds, you might want that damage reduction over DPS increase. But I'm not a Shattered Worlds expert by any means.
Yeah, you're right. That is a straight
but
up
at the very least. At the very least, it's pretty niche.
All right. The Blood Reaver deals 25% of your healing done as damage to its target. So whenever you heal, the Blood Reaver will do damage. And it has the ability of transferring 10% of that familiar's max health over to you with its scroll. Slayer one, maybe? If you're using things like Soul Split?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Like, how many tasks are there really where Soul Split's not enough to heal you? I mean, maybe. Yeah, I can't really see it. Maybe lower level Slayer, but if you're doing low level Slayer, do you have this ancient invention unlocked? I mean, maybe you do, but I don't know. I don't think.
Well, you could buy the pouch at level 70 or 73 summoning on the exchange if you wanted.
I guess 73 summoning's pretty low, isn't it? Yeah, maybe low level Slayer, but I would still probably use a DPS familiar. Like get that Talon Beast out and go to work.
All right. The Abyssal Demon will automatically teleport to the target and deal damage when it teleports. I'm guessing that's a no. Its special binds and teleblocks a target for 9.6 seconds.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that manually, easily enough with Entangle. Entangle or Ice Spells.
Then we get to the real interesting ones. The Calgurian Demon summons a level 126 combat familiar. Yeah, and we know how obnoxious this is. We saw pictures of this in the notes last week.
They're so huge. Friggin' Drake 2.0.
When you use the scroll, temporarily provide the player familiar and nearby players with a 5% critical strike buff for 9.6 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be pretty great, I think. There's going to be some places where, especially if it's cheap, it's going to be really good. Like something I was thinking about for, I don't know if this is worth it, but something I was talking about with a friend was if you're trying to skip phase 3 at Araxor, which requires you to do 100k damage in 6 seconds, the best familiar, which we're about to talk about, won't quite like make that meaningful of a difference. But basically, whether or not you get the skip is determined entirely by critical hit RNG. So something I was talking to someone about was, what if we did Rax record attempts where we used this familiar to get the phase skip, dismissed it, and then summoned a Ripper on P4 and just like did that every time to try to get the record. So like maybe that would be a cool use. I don't know. That sounds ridiculous, but that's the first cool thing I thought of.
All right. Then
I guess it depends on your definition.
Then of course we get to the Ripper Demon at level 96. Deals more damage to the target according to how much missing health it has, and of course it has the classic Ripper Demon jump attack, dealing up to 350% damage of its maximum hit. And this is at 96. And, we knew this is the one that we'd be talking about here. And there have already been discussions that this will be toned down, I think, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be toned down. It's so good. I think the only... scenario where it's okay to not tone it down is if the God Wars dungeons are.
If the God Wars dungeons, which
if God Wars Dungeon 3 comes out with bosses that are so incredibly difficult that an extra 100k DPM, then maybe. But spamming scrolls, which of course is expensive, so that's something to like bear in mind, is that it does cost a lot, but spamming scrolls is maybe 100,000 damage per minute, and most endgame bosses are tuned to between 140k and 180k DPM. Like many players do way more, many players do way less, but like on average, that's what like Jagex builds content around. So to have a familiar that does 100,000 damage when you're expected to be doing 140,000 damage is crazy. Like it's nuts. I don't really know how else to put it. It can solo Vindicta by itself in under 2 minutes. So if you just sit there and like make broad arrows, you can.
Oh, that's my shit right there.
Just like
oh yeah.
All you have to do is dodge the flame attack and like pray melee, and the Ripper Demon will
for me.
That's your method of combat, isn't it, Tanis?
I'm like, hey.
Yeah, so it does like something like 60 or it's probably about 60 or 70,000 DPM without scroll spamming, but like you still use scrolls, but you don't spam them with summoning flasks. Steel Titans wins scroll spamming. Does the phrase scroll spamming make sense? Do you know what I mean by
yeah,
that?
it's basically using a familiar special attack whenever
right,
you can.
like with summoning flask.
Yeah.
So you just like hold down the summoning flask key and the familiar special attack key, right? So that Steel Titan capped around 38k DPM. So this familiar is close to double that without even using summoning flasks.
That sounds awesome. Like I could just load up with armor and a shield and then let it fight, and I could just barricade myself.
Yeah, easy. You could and like 2-minute Vindicta kills.
What was that? Yeah, continue.
It's like probably 25, 26 Vindicta kills an hour. Lances are 50 million. Go in there, make some money without ever attacking.
Wow.
But so I tested this out at a bunch of different places, and it's just wildly good. Like it's the single, I would say, the single biggest buff out of Archaeology by far. I think
more so than the staff and the spear. Then,
I think so. I mean, maybe everything else combined might be as good as the Ripper, but maybe not. The Ripper is pretty darn good.
So from the sounds of it, and I mean, I don't know if this is true, what I heard that, they might be looking at toning it down, or I know you said it should be toned down. The big question I have is this going to be toned down? Because this, of course, leads to the inevitable question of power creep, which we'll get to when we sum all this up. But would you nerf the Ripper Demon if you were in charge, as it is right now?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, I would nerf it to like maybe being... I think that it should be barely better than Steel Titan is spamming summoning flasks. So like if it functionally was just a Steel Titan where you didn't have to burn, set money on fire with your summoning flasks, then I think that'd be really fair. And then when you do want to set money on fire, it's a big, bump from a Titan, which
right, 350% spike.
Yeah. So maybe if it did like 45k damage without flasks, 70k with flasks.
And you're referring to DPM when you say 45k, right?
Right. Yeah.
So 45,000 damage per minute on average with that.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be a little more reasonable than current rates.
All right.
But that's also a huge nerf, and nerfs aren't very popular.
No, they're not. But I mean, you're resourceful enough that you can get on without this familiar. And, we often say that, lots of people miss this with the farming and herblore updates that came out last year, is that those updates were designed to help the middle and the people who are just starting PVM. And maybe we could look at these familiars in the same way, but these can also be abused by people like yourself at the higher end to do insane things. So there's two different sides of the coin there. And
it definitely means that the thing that it does is it allows people who are struggling with the best method of doing a boss to actually be able to do it consistently.
Right.
So like one cycle core at Solak is something a lot of people are maybe 20,000 damage off of. Now with Ripper Demons, they could get that every time. So like that's the kind of difference that it's able to make, which ends up being big because, that one mechanic saves maybe a minute and a half off of your kill time or a minute off of your kill time or something like that. Just that tiny bit that you're off. Now all of a sudden you're saving the whole minute.
Sure. Makes sense. All right, let's move on to Ancient Invention then, because, this is where I think that the archaeology combat stuff got really interesting. And we'll talk about, of course, the fact that with Ancient Invention, we got 3 new archaeology perks that were exclusive to archaeology in addition to the increased ranks on everything else. Those perks are Relentless, which gives you a 1% chance per rank to prevent adrenaline from being consumed when using an ability that requires adrenaline. This perk has an increased chance to activate on level 20 items. Of course it does. Ruthless, which is whenever you defeat an enemy, you gain a 0.5% damage boost per rank for 20 seconds, max of 3. And this stacks up to 5 times. And then, of course, Fortune, which is a tool gizmo, 0.5% chance per rank on gathering skills and 0.1% chance per rank on production skills to double and bank whatever you have gathered or produced. And, of course, we're going to be talking about the combat side of all of these perks here. So, of all these perks that we had added, the Relentless and Ruthless and the new ranks, which one stood out to you as being the most important? Because, when you're dealing with invention perks, you're dealing with an entire mixed bag of what you're going to get. And sometimes you're going to sink millions on getting what you want. And sometimes it might just be a little bit less than optimal of what you're after. So if you had to say, out of all of the Ancient Invention changes that came with this, new ranks, new perks, what is the thing people should take note of the most?
I think Relentless is the most fun. It feels exciting to do a Sunshine and still have 100 adrenaline. That's really a fun thing. I liked it a lot. I don't know yet if it's the biggest of all the new things in terms of increased damage, but
because that one goes to rank 5
to see go off. Right, so it's a 5% chance. It works on anything. So your Gothic Staff special, your Hammer specials, Thresholds, and Ultimates, all of them will not consume adrenaline. So a perk that has a 5% chance to save 90 adrenaline is really, really cool to use, and it's a whole lot of fun to see it pop off.
All right. What about the new expanded ranks? Which one of those make you most interested?
I would say probably Aftershock 4 is probably the biggest increase in damage. I think Biting 4 is fun just because I find it really fun to risk noxious components. I don't know why I find that fun, but I do.
Biting,
because you could do it.
Increases your crit chance, right?
Right. Yeah. So you could do 7 by itself to get 100% Biting 4 chance, or you could go for Biting 4 mobile on the same perk, and there's a chance that you get mobile by itself.
Oh.
You just burn. You just set 7 noxious components on fire, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So the weapon perks are definitely the best damage wise, I would say. So like Aftershock 4, Equilibrium 2 is what I'm currently using.
What do Aftershock and Equilibrium do for those who are less initiated to this invention thing?
So Aftershock zaps your enemy for AoE damage for every 50,000 damage that you do, and it's 40% ability damage per rank. So at Aftershock 3, which was the previous, every 50,000 damage, you just zapped it for an extra 120% damage. Now it's 160%. So that's a significant jump.
That is a pretty big boost. All right, Equilibrium?
Yeah. Equilibrium decreases your max hit but increases your minimum hit. So overall, you end up doing a lot more consistent damage, especially at the top end, because DPS has gotten so high that you often exceed the hit cap.
Right.
So Equilibrium helps you prevent wasting all of that extra damage that you're not doing.
And I think the max hit in
cap.
RS is something like 32,000, right?
Well, that's Onslaught on stun pool, but for in general, it's 12k. So 12k, 15k with a Grimoire. So that 32,000 is like one very, very specific, incredibly
you're just
beyond
trying to do that
niche
kind of thing, right? Okay.
But it's only Yakimaru's stun pool during that, but that's very niche. The real hit cap is 12k and then 15k with a Grimoire. But lately, especially with melee basically at the high end, you have to use a Grimoire because you're exceeding 12k so often. And now, with all the melee buffs that have happened, you're exceeding 15K.
And the Grimoire is the device that basically, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, it expands the amount you can hit, right?
Right, to up to 15k.
Right, from 12.
But even that is now being exceeded pretty early. So Equilibrium really, really be clutch. And then Precise now goes up to rank 6, which adds on to your minimum damage. And so the jump from I did the math on it when we were doing the show. We were talking about the show notes, and so it seems Biting 3 to Biting 4, Precise 4 to Precise 6, and then Equilibrium 2 stays the same. So that's going from previous best in slot to new best in slot is right around 3.5% increase in damage, which might not seem like a lot, but it is significant. It's like the difference between a tier 90 and a tier 92.
Yeah, and there are people that pay for that, so it's definitely something people will go for. So what would you say? So you said the best in slot we're looking at now is effectively Aftershock 4 and Equilibrium 2, right?
Yeah, so I have Aftershock 4, Equilibrium 2 on my staff and my offhand, and then Precise 6 combined with Aftershock 1 on my main hand. And the reason for that is for flanking switches. You could flank with your Precise 6 Aftershock 1 main hand and a flanking 4 Equilibrium 1 offhand, and so your flanking will be buffed by the Precise 6, which is pretty fantastic.
Any other ones that are interesting in here that like the improved rank of flanking or the improved rank of biting? We already talked about biting.
Well, I'd say the improved rank of flanking is probably the most seems like the most impactful, perhaps. It's not the most relentless is the most fun. The Aftershock, the weapon perks are the most damage, probably.
Right.
But the flanking feels huge. So with the 200% ability from flanking 4 plus my Precise 6 and everything else, I was hitting 10,000 with just impact. And I was a hit cap almost every time with deep impact.
Wow.
So that's really a big amount of damage. And then Ruthless is pretty good too. So I have Precise 6 Ruthless 1 on my staff.
All right. And just for anybody wondering, the textbook definition of flanking is that backhand, impact, and binding shot no longer stun and will deal 40% more damage per rank. Previously could only go to 3, so 120, now to 4, so 160.
Yeah, now it's 160. So I think I said 200. I meant to say.
And the forceful backhand, deep impact, and tight bindings no longer stun and deal 15% more damage per rank to targets. So that's potentially an extra 60% there, and that's exactly what you were talking about with that. Tanis, do you have any questions on invention perks at all here?
Not really. I know
they're expensive.
I want Aftershock, apparently.
Yeah, I want Aftershock too. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost the nice thing is that nearly all of these you could get it by itself with 100% chance. So like Aftershock 4 by itself, you could get it with 100% chance. But if you want Aftershock 4 Equilibrium 2 on the same gizmo, it's 1 in 338. So like a lot of them get really expensive if you want the combos. But I would say that if you want best in slot perks, it's probably 1 to 1.2 bill per combat style.
Is that all?
So I spent 1.1 bill yesterday on perks.
Oh, I mean, who doesn't have that? I mean, and like in just shards. I mean, right?
So how would you
you just
get
gotta-
Aftershock 4 and Equilibrium 2 combined? What would be the winning combination for that?
Six Illujonkin. Is that how you say it? Illujonkin?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. And 3 Time Worn.
All right. And
there are spreadsheets floating around. Like I made one myself before any of the like official ones came out.
Yeah.
But if anyone has
apparently
questions,
the RS Wiki calculator has been updated for this.
Yeah, the RS Wiki calculator got updated. The PVM encyclopedia is updated, and then you could PM me if you have questions.
And if you have the money to waste, or I guess it's not a waste, is it?
I mean, it depends. It depends.
Not the money to burn.
Like, they're pretty fun to use. It's like it's fun to see your damage go up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And these components are something that you're definitely gonna want to get, and maybe start hoarding some of these artifacts that you're gonna get to disassemble these, or maybe even if you're just not interested in the combat side, you're going to take note and see, like you said, for the Aftershock 4, the Ilya components, you can start selling those, right?
Yeah, you can buy them.
Yeah.
Well, they come from Vindicta drops.
Oh, they're from Vindicta drops, not from
the Time Worn are from Archaeology, though.
All right, fair enough.
I think the way to make money right now is to farm classic components. Those are, I think I spent 23 mil for 100 classic components. And they come from artifacts in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, most commonly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think some of us could also go to Vindicta and have some fun with that, too.
Yeah, Vindicta's pretty accessible. I think the DRL is probably 48, 50 mil at this point. And the crests are about 40 mil. So,
and they're not they're not stupid rare drops either.
No, it's 1 in 256 if you have the buff to get any of them individually, but obviously that's like to get just the DRL, but obviously it's much higher to get Dragon Rider Lance or Crest.
Right.
Well, I guess it'd be double that, right? So it'd be 1 in 128 to get either a Dragon Rider Lance or a Crest, I think.
All right. So let's just sum up the invention part then. New best in slot is Aftershock 4 with Equilibrium 2. How do we feel about the old best in slot of Precise 4 or Precise 3 Equilibrium 2 after this?
It was Precise 4 Equilibrium 2. I destroyed all mine, which was sad because I took a lot of time and money to make.
But I mean,
those.
that'd still be good, right? Today.
Oh yeah, I mean, all perks are always good. You don't have to use best in slots to have really good perks. Like the old best in slot were still 30%. Like the old best in slot perks were 30% better than no perks.
Well, there you go.
30% is still pretty huge. But P4 E2 is now super easy to get, where it used to be like 1 in.
Right, because we now have 9 slots instead of 5 to work with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, or was it 5 or was it 6? I always get confused.
It was 5. It was 5.
So I was right on that. All right, Tanis, anything else? Questions or whatnot on the perk side of things?
No.
You feeling a little like you need to do a bit of invention, earn some money?
No, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed in what I need, but I'm also like really excited that it looks like this might be the first time I can make my own high level weapons.
Yeah, and
I
mean, if you go to the calculator and you look up P4E2, Precise 4 Equilibrium 2, and you can make that easier now.
It's super easy. It's like basically free.
It opens up a new world for us. Let me just have a look at that right now. How exactly you would get Precise 4 bonus points, David? If you can tell me what it is before I open it up on the calculator here.
I did not look up P4E2.
Let's see. How do we do this on the wiki here? I've never done this before on their invention calculator.
I'll do it right now.
All right. So we go to the invention calculator. We want an ancient gizmo.
Yeah, so you want Ancient Gizmo, and then I believe the best way to get it would just be 9 precise. And so the calculator at 120 with extreme invention potions, it appears precise 4 equilibrium 2 is a 1 in 13 chance, which is nothing.
That's not too bad.
Precise components are basically free. You get them from all kinds of stuff.
And how would you add equilibrium 2 onto this?
Well, it comes as a combo, so it's a 2-for-1. That's why it was so desirable in the past. Is instead of having to pick between the two, you got them both.
All right. So how many precise components did you say to add to it?
9.
All right. So fill it up with precise components. Oh, that's precious, not precise. Whoops. I don't see. You can tell that I don't do this often because
wow,
they're all there.
Precise 6 equilibrium 4 is one. Is a 1 in 58312777670 chance. It seems like that's the new meta. We got to go for that. What is that? What is that number?
Which one? Which one are you looking at? Precise.
I'm trying to figure out what. Hold on. Oh, 1 in 58 trillion.
Oh.
Right, easy.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, then, the 1 in 58 trillion odds for some of those.
That's for precise 6 equilibrium 4.
Yeah, but P4E2, 7.25% chance, 1 in 13.7.
Yeah, and it used to be about 1 in 1,200. So look at that.
That makes me feel good. All right.
I think I got 18 P4E2s at 1 in 1,200. Just think about that.
And the amount of money you must have spent on that.
Well, not just money, but just time. Like, it's so much time. Like, 18,000 weapon gizmos is a lot of time.
And they all got thrown away, destroyed.
Yeah, the garbage.
All right, so I realize we're just having a bit of fun here with this right now. But summing this all up in terms of the increased DPS we're seeing, do you think this is power creep, or is this going to be benefiting the mid to high levels rather than the extreme side like we saw when the 120 Herblore and farming came out?
As always, both. It makes the previous... It's like that... It's like the story, what is it, Zeno's Paradox, where every time you go 50% of the way to something, you like never can actually hit it. It's like if you go 50% of the way towards a wall over and over and over and over, you'll never actually hit that wall.
Right.
It's like that. So like every time that mid levels are able to access the previous best in slot, the best in slot is another huge, expenditure above that.
Yeah.
So like nowadays you could get what used to cost a bill now costs a couple of million, but the next tier up now costs a bill. So like it's still like a big gap. So I don't know how to analyze
so there's
that
always
exactly.
there's always going to be the next step. And I know we've talked.
There's always a bigger fish, right?
Yeah, and I know we've talked before that you're concerned because it seems like there's not much on the radar of adding anything harder than it is in game. So the way I see it is that they're making the bosses we already have more accessible because as it is, we don't have a RuneScape endgame right now aside from bossing, pretty much.
Right. My hope is that the new God Wars dungeon bosses will be all at least 1k Enraged Telos in difficulty, but hopefully more, like maybe 2k Enraged Telos.
All right. So,
but most people probably don't hope for that.
All right. So just to sum it up overall, factoring in the relics, ancient summoning, ancient invention, if you were looking at one of your use cases, I don't know, you just pick which one. How much of a boost would you say Archaeology has given you in terms of combat performance?
I would say at least 10%. With Ripper taking advantage of Ripper in its current state more, but I think that even after the Ripper nerf, it'll be something like 10%.
All right. Sounds good. And I think that this is there's nothing wrong with doing this, just as long as we know we're not, opening the floodgates, as it were. And from what we've talked about here, it doesn't sound like we're doing that, so that's good. So, all right. Anything else you want to mention in terms of archaeology combat?
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's about.
All right. We'll leave it right there then and talk about our next one, which is an update on duty of care, as we've been hearing a lot about recently, and this one focuses in on Treasure Hunter. And, this is, of course, dealing with the Loot Duels Treasure Hunter promo, which will be running from April 16th, which will allow you to choose from 3 different prizes of the same rarity at the end of each Treasure Hunter roll. And with this, the choice is completely yours of what you get in terms of the basket you've been presented with based on the rarity. And they also say that, please note, it's not yet possible for us to include this in every single design of the Treasure Hunter event, but some, like Ring of Shards, already include choice mechanics of their own, but others currently have interfaces that require more testing before we can integrate these changes. And with this, the player support team has also been reaching out to players proactively when they detect unusual spending activity. The goal with this is to increase the amount of control that players have in regards to their spending, so there will be options offered to block future purchases and change account management options. If this trial is successful, they'd like to introduce ways for players to set their own spending limits, although this will take some time. And they underscore and end the post by saying that we still fully intend to remove all blind choice from Treasure Hunter as soon as we can. All right. Progress? Tennis? Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yeah.
Personally, I
so.
think this is good. Perfect.
Yeah. I thought this was a lot better than some of the previous attempts, which were better, but this one I appreciated a lot more.
Yeah, and you can see definitely that you're rounding out the edges around this to the point where I think we now have, including this one, probably, I think it's either 4 or 5 Treasure Hunter promos where you get to choose what your actual reward is.
Right, well, and you didn't have to learn a whole new minigame. Like, you just picked one of the 3.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I liked. I'm like, okay, now we're talking.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, yeah, you're still gambling on the rarity of the item, but that's to be expected. That's definitely going to happen. But, you can choose in the example they have here between a regular prismatic star, a prismatic fallen star, or a small lamp for the fire-making skill. And, I actually was able to benefit from this, and I wound up with 1 million GP on this because I was able to choose a large cash bag over some of the other items that were there that wouldn't have been useful to me. So I'm definitely enjoying this, and I think this is a step in the right direction. David, what do you think?
I think that it could be a step in the right direction. It's not something I use a ton, but I think so.
Yeah. And, this is something that honestly should have come out in November when they had that awkward live stream with Mike on the couch there, right?
Yeah.
They should have been unveiling this when they were talking about this. It's too bad that it took this long to get there. But I'm hoping, and I might be wrong in this, that there's definitely some goodwill that's been built up in the community because of this.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, they have been on a decent kind of path with, Mouseketeer, Yak Track, the more visible Treasure Hunter, options. It all adds up, and it all, I think if you take it at face value, looks like they're trying.
Right, and even if you compare where we are today to where we were last year, that's different in itself entirely too.
Entirely.
In some ways, isn't it just like a buff to Treasure Hunter, though?
It really is.
Sort of what it seems like.
It really is, because you get to choose. Better. I mean, we all know what everyone's...
Is that good, though?
Well, that's the question I think we have to answer, because everybody is out there for the prismatic stars, right? or the lamps, depending on how you do things.
That's what it's about. But that's what you should be paying for.
And, people complain that they're always there, but that's the way it's been ever since the beginning. And they're still running these, once in a blue moon, 75% off bonus XP oddment promos too.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Treasure Hunter isn't like going to a casino where you can say, "Oh, I paid for entertainment."
Right.
Like, you're not paying for entertainment; you're paying for XP.
Yeah, that's precisely what it is.
However you want to look at that.
Or if the cat promo is up, something cosmetic.
Right. Exactly.
And, you know exactly what you're getting into with this, and I think we'd be deluding ourselves if we thought that we could get to a point where there would be no treasure hunter anymore. And, I think that is indeed possible to get to that point. It would involve effectively removing all blind chance and renaming it and doing a massive overhaul in the way the interface looks and the way it's presented. But if they wanted to remove treasure hunter, all they have to do is get to the point where 9 out of 10 promos don't have blind chance, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, and I hope that it's like the ultimate destination. I hope that's where all this ends up leading to.
Yeah. Because that's what players have wanted since the beginning, I think. People can be concerned about the XP coming in, and that's fine. And that's a question to have entirely if that should be coming in on that. But I think what people were most scared of whenever I looked at what was being said on Treasure Hunter was the fact that it potentially seemed predatory. And the fact you're adding a choice just completely takes that away.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I believe you should get what you pay for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not paying for a chance at something.
I mean, if they really wanted to, put packs of oddments up on the microtransaction store where you buy your keys, and then just go when there's a 75% off sale and buy the bonus XP there. Another way of bringing money in, right?
Yeah, that would be fine.
I mean, it'd be nice to have other ways of getting oddments, but I imagine we'll get there at some point too. So, all in all, a good post, I think. All right, next up, there's another double XP weekend on the way, folks, arriving on May 8th, running until May 18th with 48 hours of double XP over 10 days. No archaeology, of course. And they said that they're doing this because everybody's been cooped up indoors, and they've been told that an extra double XP event would very much help ease the pain. So this is going to be the fourth in the entire year if they continue to what they've been up to.
Yeah, I don't know who told them that, because I'm a very big believer and advocate for double XP weekend, and my first thought was, already? Okay,
so it's not just... we've had this discussion before, you and I on the show here, about double XP weekends and how you feel XP is the next step that the game is going in.
Right.
I feel that you can't have too much XP in the game or else, there's nothing to do because there's no journey beyond 200 mil each, and even on its own, I've come to the view that siphoning XP away and just continually playing the game over and over again isn't necessarily the best form of an endgame. The game needs a real, actual endgame associated with it. And, everybody's going to eventually get to max. Everybody's eventually going to get to 120s. More and more people are going to get to 200 mil. And the question I have is, what do you do after you've maxed your skills?
Whatever you want. I mean, a lot of, it's whatever you want. I think the sweet spot for double XP weekends was 2 a year.
Me too.
That made it exciting. That made it fun.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I don't think this is a big deal. And the reason I don't think it's a big deal, and the reason I wasn't all excited about yet another discussion about is there too much XP in the game, is I still don't think it has much of an effect. What's the difference between this and what we just talked about with Treasure Hunter? If someone's out there spending thousands of dollars, you wouldn't have a problem with that, Shane. Would you feel like you were your gameplay had been taken away somehow, or that you didn't get as much
No,
enjoyment?
because I'm just concerned about my own numbers.
Right. So,
but it's not necessarily but it's not a discussion in that. It's a discussion in terms of the design of the game and what we do with all this XP.
Well, I mean, I think first it's important for them to take advantage of the increased bump due to the COVID and also archaeology being such a smashing success. But then second, like the thing that's so exciting now to me that made me realize is that it's 5.6 bill now. Now it's 5.6 isn't really that big of a deal. It's just the race to number one. So for me, it's kind of exciting to have more double XPs because I just want to hit 5.6 as soon as possible, so that I have a chance to compete for rank 1 or top page or whatever my goal is on the next skill release. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
right. Now, Shane, that was David saying that. And David has more money than God. So 5.6, it's going to be a little less painful for him.
Yeah.
But it's still a pretty lofty goal. Most of us are not going
people
to
aren't
reach
going for
that
max.
point.
And, the majority of people in-game aren't even going for max, if you look at the metrics.
Yeah.
And this helps them on that front. And, it's just a question, though, of for the people who are maxed out, what do you do with all this XP?
Well, I mean, but there's such a gap between maxed out and not, man.
Well, maxed is all 99s or 120s where appropriate. That's what I'm saying, maxed out. Because you don't necessarily need to go for 200s and 5.6.
No, but almost all of the XP is 13 mil to 200 mil is a much bigger gap than 1 to 13.
Yeah,
that's where the bulk. The other thing is that they need double XPs drive the prices of goods like herbs, rocktails, things like that. Their price for the entire year is basically maintained off of the fact that people know double XPs happen because that's when everyone trains them. So people need an incentive to go for 5.6 because things like the herb market or rocktail market would never be sustained if the only thing people went for was max. All of that money is entirely sustained by people going for 200.
It's all post-mining. Yeah, it's all post-mining.
Yeah, and there's benefits for it too.
Skilling resources would crash to nothing if people weren't incentivized to go for 200 mils.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the only concern I have is that we've talked about the prestige system before and siphoning things away. That's not an end game, and I don't know what it is. I just feel like there needs to be something. Maybe achievement-based, like those meta-achievements or something to that effect, that incentivize this beyond a race. And, we talked about there being, you said, the sweet spot of 2 double XP weekends a year, which is good. And I think I had this idea in a friend's chat, and Sirion actually came up with the same idea this week as well. I thought, what if, there was just an item you could activate, you get 2 of them a year, and you get, 10 days of double XP for 48 hours based on it. You can activate it whenever you want, as long as it's, say, not within 2 months of each other. So if you wanted to do one in January and one in March, go for it.
Well, I guess that
what if we spread them out based on that?
Well, there's the bullet in the head for an XP weekend. This was more of a slow death that I was worried about, but, I guess you could go ahead and put it out of its misery. Jesus. I wouldn't enjoy that because I enjoy the culture and the fun of a double XP. No, I think that's enhanced when there's only 2. And that's one thing that was a give and take with these extended because it is much better for everyone's schedule at the time. But there was a trade-off with that, and part of the trade-off is making it feel a little less special. But when you start adding more of them, now you're really kind of diluting that kind of specialness. But that is my only issue. Like, I don't have an issue with the XP or the amount of XP. I kind of look at that as like, you know, your grandpa told you he walked to school uphill through 5 feet of snow both ways. Okay, I know you did. Cool. But guess what? I'm still traveling the same road as you. And screw snow. I don't like that shit. I got a snowmobile. Awesome. I know how hard it was for you. Like, if you came up in 2005 and got a 99 runecrafting, buddy, dude, I know. I know how hard that was. But I don't have to do that.
Laughs in Spain.
I mean, and it's also kind of like how I said in pre-show. It's like when a kid gets caught smoking. You know, they got them parents that are like, "You're gonna smoke the whole pack," and you know, you're sitting there turning green. You're like, "You want another double XP, son?" No, I don't want another one. I can't. So, and it's fine, because at the end of the day, you should play how you want to play, no matter what is going on. So, I might not even mess with it a whole lot, because I'm digging
You're still going to be
archaeology.
doing archaeology.
I mean...
And that leads me to another point said on Twitter by Shawnee, former community manager. He said he's not even hyped for double XP weekends anymore, because they are done so frequently, it feels like they're just another thing. And he doesn't want to be forced to make the choice between doing double XP and archaeology.
Well, and I'm not. But you don't have to make that choice.
Yeah,
the thing is do what you want to do.
The mentality if you have to do Bibles is also gone now, because you know that there's going to be so many coming up that if you don't do it this time, who cares? Do it next time.
Yep.
So in some ways, it actually makes it less of a forced choice, because instead of you're functionally forced to do Bibles twice a year, assuming you have 5.6 as your goal. Obviously, if that's not your goal, who cares? But now you could just like do whatever you want, because you could just hit it up next time.
All right. Well, I'm content to leave it there then. I've voiced my opinion that I think we should keep it at 3. 2 is potentially better. And we'll just have to see if this becomes a new norm or if it's a one-off. If it's a one-off, good. Capitalize on it. So we're going to move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you imagine 4 extended?
Oh, God.
40 days a year, man.
And that's potentially what we're headed to this year.
A lot.
I hope it's going to be 3.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you might as well just wait till September, right? Because what are you going to do? You're going to do another in July and then another in September?
Keep on farming shit.
No.
Keep bringing them herbs in your buddy.
Yeah, that's true. True. All right. We're going to move on to tech news in just a moment, but before we do that, I'll just thank our Patreon supporters for this episode, making everything we do on the back end at patreon.com/RSBANDB possible, and of course this podcast. So this week, I'd like to thank 29 Let's Go, Brock H, Cameron, Cass, CGB 900, Christian S, Diana, Jade Gizmo, James W., Jason S., Joe M., John P., Kyle, Nora, a new arrival, welcome, Our Memories, Rastafa, Ripeth, Sam W., The Naked Captain, The Lion, Tom V. and Zez. Thank you all of you for your support. It truly does mean the world to us, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that monthly bit that we put out last week on the discussion of past skill launches in RuneScape. If this sounds interesting to you, just head on over to patreon.com/RSBANDB. You can sign up there. Gain access for as little as $1 a month. You get a special mention in the show notes, early access to them, and of course you help fund the cost for hosting and production of RSBANDB Update. For $3 a month, you get a special VIP rank in Discord to mention on the podcast at the start of the month, in addition to everything else. Plus, at $5 a month, if you want to give the ultimate gift, you get a shout-out each and every week and gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use for the clip show at the end of the year. And you do, of course, help fund the costs of our servers and whatnot throughout all of this. And in case you're wondering what we're doing with this, we have, of course, our monthly bit bonus show that came out last week on past skill launch retrospectives. The Inside RSBANDB Update is essentially a dev blog at the end of the month about something about how RSBANDB Update works. It might be an interview with one of the co-hosts, how we do something, how the website works, like last month, in terms of updating the site for a new skill. Then we have the RSBANDB Update Roundtable, recorded on a Saturday, and there we talk about anything and everything RuneScape related. We had a great archaeology one last month. And, of course, movie night will be happening on the 27th of April this month, Tanis, you'll be making the choice for that one. We'll be watching another movie in the RSBANDB Discord, and this is exclusive to Patreon supporters and any special guests that get invited for this. So if this sounds at all interesting to you, just head on over to patreon.com/RSBANDB. And thank you so much for your support, everyone. It truly means the world to us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So tech news this week. Apple has finally unveiled the new iPhone SE, which starts at a very reasonable price for modern mobile phones at $399 US. It's effectively
modern mobile phones,
right?
You mean Apple?
No, I mean right. I mean, if you were
Apple.
looking at a flagship Android phone, you're looking at similar pricing, or a Samsung.
Yeah.
Similar pricing for flagships. This iPhone SE is last year's iPhone chip, the CPU, bundled inside the body of an iPhone 8 with the same camera as the iPhone 8, the same screen size, but it's just going to be so much faster than the old iPhone 8. So if you are an iPhone 8 user and you love that form factor, this is probably the phone for you to upgrade to. And sadly for us, Tanis, there's no plus-sized variant.
I know. That sucks, because I would have, because I was like, ooh, the 8 form and new okay. But then, yeah.
No plus size. It comes in black, white, and product red. And the product red will have a portion of its proceeds donated to COVID-19 funds on this. And, you know, as with everything goes, as the software improves, we get more RAM, the phones get faster. It's going to have a better camera than the 8 just because of the way the cameras work on the modern iPhones. And, you know, in general, I think this is probably the best valued iPhone that you can get out there, because if you want all the speed of an iPhone 11 or an 11 Pro, this has it. And it's going to have phenomenal battery life too. So if for some reason you're looking for a budget device, or you just want something that's smaller, this is probably your iPhone that you're going to want to get. And they only release these every few years, so jump on this now. Pre-orders start on the 17th. I was initially thinking of making the size downgrade from Plus to this, so I'm not entirely sure on this.
Well, if you're doing that, then that would be the time.
That would be the one. And the other decision that comes into it is, do we wait for something like the 12 to come out that is potentially going to look like a borderless iPhone 4, except larger? And, you know, that's something that's always interested me, is that if we could bring back that old classic iconic design, then that might be something else as well. So there's going to be some discussions going on for this. David, which one do you use, and do you have any thoughts on moving up to something like this?
I'll probably keep using my 6S until it doesn't function anymore.
Okay.
I don't really... I don't know. I've never felt like there was a thing I wanted to do that it couldn't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a 6S, that's the last one with the headphone port on it. And with that, I mean, the fact you're still using it speaks volumes that you don't necessarily even need to upgrade every 2 or 3 years. You're perfectly fine to just, push it into that 4 or 5 year span too, which speaks a lot to modern operating systems and hardware, I think.
I'm sure there's stuff that I could be doing that I don't know I could be doing, but I don't miss it because I don't know it exists.
Sure. Fair enough. All right. Next piece of tech news is that the ESRB, the people who rate video games, are introducing a new rating called, or rather not a new rating, it's just a new interactive element. They will tell you now on a video game rating if it includes in-game purchases and potentially random items that you can get from chance boxes. So this is the loot box warning that people wanted all these years ago. You remember when we first talked about this on Tech News and how it seemed so far away, but here we are. We're doing the same thing now. They're putting these warnings on the games.
It only took a bunch of countries to threaten to stop it before we got a mean label. Thanks.
They say it'll be assigned to any game that includes in-game offers to purchase digital goods or premiums with real-world currency, or virtual coins or other forms of in-game currency that can be purchased with real-world currency, for which the player doesn't know prior to the purchase the specific digital goods or premiums that they'll be receiving.
Whatever this label ends up looking like, they should just replace the EA with this label on every one of their games.
They're also doing something similar in the EU. The Pan-European Games Information Consortium will be labeling games as including in-game purchases and including paid random items as well on the packaging of video games, or I guess in this case the websites of video games, since the question of who exactly purchases a video game in a package can be asked at this point in time. So, once again, it is entirely up to the user at the end of the day what they decide to spend on in their games and whether or not they engage with this. But I think for parents who are, especially dealing with children who are growing up.
Leveling up. We're leveling up.
I prefer that. We should include leveling up in the name of the show.
But it gives parents a warning and will effectively just, get that out there that, hey, this is potentially something you're going to see in game. And lots of people have wanted this. And, I think the next step is for other companies like EA to take a step back and just stop the predatory practices. And, people were questioning if Jagex was a leader on this. And given the duty of care post, I think we can say that they are. And they're a pretty good example to the rest of the community.
Well, they're getting better.
Yeah.
Let's not get carried away here.
Yeah, and this entire thing is a step from the treasure hunter duty of care to this. It's all a step process.
Right.
All right.
Incrementalism. That is best.
So you're probably wondering, how exactly are governments going to track patients of COVID-19? And there have been lots of people, myself included, saying that Apple and Google need to get involved in this in one way or another. And this came out shortly after recording last week. And what's going to happen is that in May, both Apple and Google are going to be issuing updates to their operating systems to allow app developers to create secure tracking-based applications that healthcare authorities can use in order to enable people to be tracked who are potentially sick with the virus. And with this, we need to just underscore here that the tracking from the perspective of a person who is infected, and on the Apple side or the Google side, should be entirely up to the person of whether or not they get tracked. And this is something that I say from both the technology side, and it's something that governments should not be forcing on people. And I will be resolute in defending that, despite any public health concerns that happen from it or caused by it. Now, with this, what's going to be happening is that a leading number of public health authorities, universities, and other groups are going to be doing what they're calling opt-in contact tracing, to effectively say, hey, you've been close to someone who's been sick, perhaps you should self-isolate. And Apple and Google will be launching the software needed and issuing updates to their operating systems to make this happen in the next month. And following that, in later months, Apple and Google will work to enable a broader Bluetooth-based contact tracing platform by building this functionality directly into the underlying platforms of health products and whatnot that people might have purchased. And they say this is a more robust solution than the API and would allow more individuals to participate if they opt in. So think of this like a Bluetooth thermometer or something like that. And it would be able to, if the person chooses to, opt in and talk to a broader health ecosystem and work with government health authorities. And they say that privacy, transparency, and consent are going to be the utmost important as they continue to build on this, which is a new field that only a few months ago we had no idea was going to be needed. Now, for those wondering how exactly this works, every phone is going to be broadcasting a unique rotating code, and then it stores all of the other codes that it receives. Effectively, think of a 6-digit random number, just to simplify it. And when a person is infected, all of the codes that you have sent to other people are stored in the cloud on the internet. And then everybody else will just see that, oh, I have been in contact with an infected code at this date. Perhaps I should look at and just monitor my symptoms. And there's no way of knowing that whether it's you or David or myself, who it was, it's just going to be entirely anonymous based on being around somebody who was infected. There's not going to be any names or contact info or accounts transposed with this. And I realize I've been going on a long-winded spiel here, so I'll just say, do either of you guys have any questions on this right now?
Well, I mean, it's complex. It's nuanced. There's a lot going on here. We obviously, contact tracing is a big part of trying to stop pandemics. I would really like to know how they did it in South Korea. I know their testing
was mandatory.
robust. Right.
Yeah.
The only thing, like, see, I would be much more for public shaming with the name attached to it, so that we can call them idiots. So that when they do stupid things and don't believe in science, we can all point our fingers and say, "Hey, you're doing stupid things and don't believe in science." So I'd push it even further.
Yeah. And, I was one of the first people, I think, back at the end of March or mid-March to say that, if you want to stop this thing in its tracks, just start tracking people on their phones. Governments could tell people to do that. Obviously, that's not something we want, but there was an easy out to prevent this from happening. And the interesting question, and I think the broader question that many people are going to be asking throughout all of this, is how much of the individual liberty and let's just say personal freedoms that we enjoy in the Western world here are we willing to give up to stop this?
Well, and that's the thing, though. We're always giving up. We gave up a whole lot of personal freedom after 9/11. Did we ever get it back?
That was security theater at the airports, at least.
Never got any of it back. In fact, we got surveillance. That's what we got. So, will this not be hijacked for?
Well, the thing is,
I don't know.
The thing is, unless Apple or Google go bad, you're going to be able to turn this off like you can turn off location tracking in your phone.
Shane, but that's the thing. Companies aren't good or bad. They are machines.
Yeah, I know. But I'm not saying that Apple and Google are going to initially, just decide to track you for their own purpose. They can already do that if they want.
It's about having the capability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about, because they can be forced to comply with whatever.
Oh, yeah. Government could say that you definitely got to turn this on or you're not operating in our country.
Yeah. So, I mean, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to put back. But you have to fight this pandemic, and if we can't depend on each other to do the right thing, then I don't know, what choice do you got? That's what sucks about it. Like, if we could all stay home for 2 weeks, it'd be over. Everyone could quit bitching.
Yeah.
But you can't seem to get people to do that.
Yeah. Or you just accept at some point that there will be casualties, and that's the price to keep the economy going.
Well, screw that, because that's the price the elites want to pay, because you know what? They're going to stay in their house. They can afford to do that. It's the poor working stiff out there.
Oh, definitely. And that's what this thing has really underscored, that there are certain segments of the population that can indeed work from home and can stay home, but there's an entire class of people out there, and the ones who, at this point are effectively keeping everything running, that are putting themselves in danger each and every day.
Right. Which is like, if if we had half the sense that your country did, take care of the people. Just take care of the people. And you don't have to have these Orwellian, crazy.
Yeah, but we're even
intrusive
considering doing this kind of
features.
contact tracing here. This kind of intrusion. We are considering this. Something like this by app. Even in Canada, it's being considered.
I don't know. I guess I don't know.
And that's the thing. Why I said Western world. How much do we want to give up? And I feel good that it's Apple and Google who are doing this. Personally, I would opt into it, but we are going to need some assurance that if you want to opt out of it, that your phone won't be doing it anyways. And that's the big question, because both these operating systems on the Apple side and the Android that Google ships with their phones is closed source. Granted, Android as the Android umbrella is open source, but the Android that you get on a Pixel, you can't modify. So, I don't know. David, do you have any thoughts on this?
Not a ton. I mean, the kind of different plans are really interesting. It's like the plan to do 20 million tests a day and just like basically have a functioning economy, but just do 20 million tests every single day is interesting. I don't think it's feasible, obviously. It's an obscene number, but
yeah,
in order to get the economy back running at full steam and also not have deaths, that's the number of tests that we'd have to do every day, which is kind of shows how wild this has been.
Yeah, and I think that this option from Apple and Google offers a third way that really wasn't thought of before, so hopefully people will consider it.
I mean, at least it's not Facebook.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
That's really about all I can say. At least it's not Facebook. But for all this talk about getting their economy going again, it wasn't that damn good to begin with. It might be if you were an investor, but for the working person out there, it was not that good. And it hasn't been. Sorry. Not even under Obama was it good.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been since like 1970.
Yeah. So, I mean, all this, let's get back to the good old days. No, that's good days for
Let's
people
get back to the good old days and go back to the gold standard then. That's the 1970s.
You,
Yeah, and just for the record, I do like the gold standard, but that's a topic for another show.
I bet Ron Paul was your idol.
No, he wasn't.
Oh.
All right. Our archaeology skill of the month, as we mentioned, anybody who wants to compete can, because this is a fresh skill. Everybody started off at 0. We got Brew with 71.4 million XP gained. Malinoric with 30.9. And Unknown Raptoid with 29.6, with PK Mage right behind him at 29.4. Then Mr. Jingles rounding out the top 5 with 28.7.
Now, look at that graph, Shane.
I know.
Have you noticed how that looks like? Okay, that's like a COVID draft, right? Like the bottom people were like, that's like South Korea and Singapore. They took it real damn serious and were prepared, and they're kind of, they flattened the curve. And then there's the next tier, which was kind of like, like the places that put in social distancing.
Then we got Brew, who has done.
And then we got Brew, who just said, screw it. He's in a 4x4 driving around Michigan's capital and shit, apparently. Just let it spike, baby. Let it spike.
Oh, it's amazing to see a full competition like this. We don't have an opportunity to do these that often because there's no new skills, but very fun indeed.
Yeah, this is real.
I enjoy it. I enjoy watching. All right, speaking of that, we got achievements this week. Lots of 99 archaeology. So we're going to begin. Starting off on April 15th, we have Magic King with 99 agility. Robbie got 99 archaeology also on the 15th. Sigma Gamma got 99 agility on the 15th as well. Thaxi with 99 archaeology. VSS with 99 archaeology on the 15th. Arcane with 99 archaeology on the 14th. Cabru, David, you got 99 archaeology on the 13th. Malchiar got 99 hunter. Peachy XO with 99 woodcutting. Stinky Pete 22 with 99 slayer on the 13th as well. And that's all we had on the 13th.
Nice. Then we have Frar with 99 Archaeology on April 12th. We have Alexi 10 with 99 Ranged on the 12th. We have Zewick with 99 Archaeology on April 12th. And we have Derpus Near with 99 Archaeology, 11th. And Rastafa with 99 Archaeology on April 11th.
That's an Iron Man.
Way to go. That's an Iron Man. Let's see. Oh, and then we have Up
the Iron 05.
Up the Iron 05. Okay, with 99 attack on April 11th.
Nicely done, everyone. What do we got next, David?
And we have FE Super J, 99 ranged on April 10th, and FE Super J with 99 Slayer also on April 10th. Idiot and Astic with 99 Archaeology.
Idiot on a stick.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty good. Fantastic. All right, cool. Lanicky with 99 Cooking on April 10th. Omega with 99 Archaeology on April 10th. Stinky Pete 22 with 99 Firemaking on April 10th. Paper Gap with 99 Dungeoneering on April 9th. And Papo with 99 Archaeology on April 9th.
They sure started filtering in, didn't they? All these 99 archaeologies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a little bit. I mean,
it's about if you do it Iron Manning all your own materials, assuming you have your porters already prepared. It's about 2 weeks for 99, I would say. If you play a lot, obviously.
Yeah,
it's like different for different people.
That's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, what do you have for pick of the week for us, David?
Yeah, so my pick of the week is Dua Lipa, who's like a popular pop singer, has a new album out called Future Nostalgia. It's very upbeat and fun and exciting, kind of like club music, but not quite as fast. I imagine that if you sped it up a little bit, it would be typical club music. But it's just I thought it was a really, really fun album and a good mood for such a kind of otherwise sad time.
So these people aren't named this. These are their stage names, right?
I don't know.
That's something I've always wondered with this. But anyways, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have much to say about music, as you guys probably know, so I'll let Tanis ask the questions on this one if you have any.
Yeah. The singer's first name means love in Albanian.
Oh, okay.
Albanian. So that was the name her parents gave her.
Nice.
Well, the only question I have is she hot?
I'll leave that to the viewers, but popular
I
pop
prefer
singer.
my singers.
It's kind of she kind of fits the archetype you might expect.
Okay. All right. Then. Well,
all right. Sounds good.
that's good enough.
What have you been up to on RS Tennis? Dare I ask?
Archaeology. And
Okay.
then I did a little bit more archaeology, and I did some more archaeology. But, no, I got my Dragon Matic. I was excited about that.
Did you buy it?
Yes, I mined the materials with Junior, and it was like, dude, when you think about it, like, even a low selling, like, material, like, say a 10, 11, 12, 13K material, it's like trying an hour before the mining and smithing.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
Every day.
And I wonder how
So
long it's going to keep like that.
Probably not all that long, but hey, I bought a Matic with it, and that was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I had my dust and everything waiting, and so we're up to the crystal now.
Very good.
That's beautiful.
Very good.
It's really a game changer with low level skilling making 10 mil an hour, and it seems like it's going to stay that way for a while. Maybe not forever, but for probably I doubt it'll ever go below 3 or 4 mil an hour for low level skilling.
Yeah, I don't see it going under.
I think
Cool.
something. I know this is a big topic, so if you don't want to talk about it, because of time we don't have to. But do you think it should have been an elite skill?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay. That makes sense.
See, it was quick, actually.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Just because it doesn't really lean into too much, and it's good, and you can't do a free-to-play experience if you have an elite skill.
Yeah, that's true. It just gave a rise to Altscape. Like most of the people who got 200 mil are, well, maybe not most, but several of them had 7, 8, 9 alts running farming mats.
Yeah, I believe it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was asking that. But I guess who cares?
Well, dude, they're all paying accounts, and they're all like, they're not.
That's
scripts.
true. They are all paying accounts.
You know, so like, I don't have too much of a problem. Like yes, it did have an impact on mining, but I don't know. It is what it is, I guess.
All right. For me on RS, like you said, Archaeology, I'm up to level 76 currently. I'm still enjoying it. I learn something new each day that I do it. And, just when I think I might be getting bored, bam, there's something new. And that was recently what you uncover inside Stormguard and how you get around there. And I'll leave that as a bit of a surprise for people who aren't level 76 yet.
Oh, you finally figured it out, Shane?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was waiting for a message about that. I'm like,
yeah, that was great. But, aside from that yak track, I think I'm currently on like task 36 or 37 or something like that. So good progress on that will be done with plenty of time left to spare. So, just still enjoying Archaeology. That's what it comes down to. Level 76. I did find some of the ones obnoxious leading up to it, like the 74 band was really bad, just in terms of what you needed to make those artifacts. I found most of the Everlight ones not too bad, actually, but the 74 one really annoyed me. So,
yeah,
that's the one in crit.
It speeds up a ton around 89.
Yeah, we heard that. And
so 89 to 99 probably took less time than 1 to 89 did.
Nice.
By a significant amount.
All right, what have you been up to on RS, David?
So I did 99 Archaeology, and then did a day of God Wars Dungeon leveling up items for perks, and now I'm basically doing Virago all day long. I've gotten 150 tectonic energies in the last 3 days, so that's basically all I've been doing. And then AFKing stuff on my Iron Man.
Very nice.
Wow.
Very nice. Alrighty, folks, that's it for this episode of RSBANDB Update. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you want to subscribe, you can find that at update.rsbnb.com/subscribe. We got Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, YouTube, Stitcher, practically everything under the sun. Just visit update.rsbnb.com/subscribe. You want full show notes, you can get that at update.rsbnb.com. And we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. So take care, everyone. See you next week.
See ya.